Absolutely. Let's come back to our Lagos studios, and we have joining us in the studio the MD CEO of Nigerian Communications Satellite Limited, NIGCOMSAT, Mrs. Jane Egerton Idehen. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Bukola, as well.
You know, I'm curious. I've been waiting for this conversation, and it's going to be like it's going to be like information education. In that sense.
Let's make it that.
Yes, because Nigerians are like, do we have satellites? And that we even need to maintain.
I'm very happy that you said that.
But you know, I'm sure
some Nigerians will say, "What's the role of
what do we need satellites for?"
There is a lot of people that don't even believe that we have a satellite, and it's a shame.
Yeah, so that's why it's important you came. So let's begin. Let's start from the very beginning.
So let's start with, do we have satellites?
Do we have satellites? And then we can talk how many satellites we have, and then other questions.
So we do have satellite. I manage NIGCOMSAT 1R. That's the nation's communication satellite. And we do have it. It's seated nicely somewhere we call 42.5 degrees east in space. That's how we measure the location. We've launched up to 7 satellites in Nigeria. So this is not our first rodeo. Out of the 54 countries in Africa, there are about 19 of us that have. Nigeria is number 3, right after Egypt and South Africa. So it's very important that people know that we have satellite. But we also have different kinds of satellite. So I told you mine, or the one I manage, the agency I manage, is a communication satellite. So think about like a satellite that enables people to communicate, voice data. You can make voice calls, you can browse the internet or broadband. But there are other kinds of satellite. There's an agency in the government also called NASA. I don't know if you've heard about NASA. They're the research arm for the space agency. They also manage what we call our Earth observation or remote sensing satellites. And those satellites is like having a camera in the sky. So they take like pictures, and with that you can do your geo-mapping, geo-target. So you use that also for monitoring, if you want to monitor something. The same thing, there's an agency called the Defense Space Administration. It's an arm of the Ministry of Defense, and they also have a remote sensing satellite. So we do have, and we've launched series. So currently we have, if I'm right, we should have 2 in space, but we've launched 7.
Whoa. I'm glad to hear the optimism with which you speak about satellite operations. But there have been concerns in recent times about the operational challenges within NIGCOMSAT. Is it true, for instance, that the Abuja ground station has not been operating for years? Is it also true that China is in fact operating the NIGCOMSAT 1 that you are in charge of?
So just like it's always good not to clear up all the misinformation. And NIGCOMSAT it will be since 2007. So we did have the first satellite we launched. Of course, it was failed, and we relaunched NIGCOMSAT 1R in 2011. Has been managed by the locals. We have no foreigner managing NIGCOMSAT 1R. It's all locals and Nigerians.
So where did the story come from?
I don't know. I think sometimes it's miscommunication. We had a mishap sometime in 2020. Some parts of our servers were affected, and some part of that server was virtualized. But it doesn't mean you don't operate your satellite.
So let's talk about what the president has done, the order to release funds and all of that. We've seen the performance of this budget in some ministries is totally abysmal by their own admission, because they are oversighted by the Senate. For instance, health, we saw what was earmarked as spending limit in terms of capital or capex in this sense, and then we saw what were the release fund, just totally disgraceful for a country of ours. But maybe they have their own explanation. So we're glad to hear that certain agencies that are not in everyday conversation like yours are beginning to get that attention. Talk to us what that funding means, and how much are we talking about here? Generally, how is your funding? What's your budget size, if you will? I think that's what I was trying to look for. What are you exposed to financially?
Okay, let me start by what the president has done, because I thought it was something great. So the closest we've had to that was like 20 years ago, when the President Obasanjo did the same thing for the space sector. So I do appreciate what His Excellency, the President Bola Tinubu, has done, because space can be boring. A lot of people struggle to understand what we're even doing in space. Now, to be that strategic and be that visionary to say, I take a stake, it means that he understands that exactly what was said. I was fortunate to be part of the Space Council that held earlier this week, from where you got that report. The Space Council is normally chaired by the president, but for that session, it was represented by the VP. And he said something when he said the opening remark. He said, we fund space, not because it's a distant dream. That's what most people think it is, because you can't see it. We fund space because we want smart agriculture. We fund space because we want healthcare to be available even in the remote places. We fund space because we want Earth observation to monitor weather system. There is so much value, healthcare, because we know that today, security, you can go on. Today, your traditional telecommunication, which is what we call terrestrial, so things that emanate from Earth, so fiber, or mobile operators. Mobile operators have been here for how many? 20 years. Is it everywhere in your community that is covered? Is it everywhere in your village that has fiber? It is difficult to put those kind of solutions in very rural areas. That's the strength of satellite or communication satellite. Because all you need is the sky. So you have to understand that it takes a layered technology to get you where you're going to. So even when most people don't get it, it's important when leadership gets it. That's why I was really, really proud that the president took that stand. Because by doing that, what he's saying is that I want inclusive healthcare. I want inclusive education. I don't want to hear that you can only have AI in urban areas. You can only use AI tools in urban areas. The digital economy only applies to Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. What he's saying is that digital economy applies to the remotest part of Makurdi, the remotest part of Imo State. Even if the mobile operators are not there, we should be able to get a solution to take it there.
Financially, sorry. You didn't answer.
Oh, sorry, your second. I went to your second question.
Yes. How much are you exposed to?
So we do run a yearly budget, and we get a capex from the government, but it changes. Since I've been there, capex have moved from like 4 billion to 10 billion, because it also depends on the projects. You know, for you to go and get a capex is a capital expenditure. There's something you're trying to do with the money. In the earlier stages, we're upgrading our equipment. So when I came in 2023, what we actually did was upgrade the equipment because we noticed we needed more capacity. And it was important to us that the technology worked. So the first thing we did in 2023 was get it all to work. It has to work. Before you go out and tell people it's working, use it. Then we got it out to work. The next thing was what? We found out people were not aware that it existed. People didn't even know. People thought it was a dream. So there was a lot of awareness required. We had to show use cases to the defense sector, to the healthcare sector, to the broadcast, and we got returns. I must say that. We did. Currently, as I speak to you, over half of the nation's broadcasting is carried by NIGCOMSAT. We carried, not just for Nigeria, but even broadcasters way down in South Africa, we carry their traffic. We want to do the same thing in broadband. So that's why I said that the capex changes, because broadband for us would align with our even bigger mandate, which is to help the broadband penetration of Nigeria. We want to get to at least 70%. Yeah, we're currently at 50%.
And that's where I'm headed. For those who are watching you now who are saying, okay, beyond upgrading the infrastructure that you've talked about, that you started to do in 2023, and the president is asking for more funds to be released to NIGCOMSAT for its operations, what value would you say that you'll be bringing to the work of NIGCOMSAT to make a difference for Nigerians, so that Nigerians can see that indeed their money is working for them? For instance, you talked about security. What value will NIGCOMSAT be bringing into that space to make a difference in the fight against insecurity, for instance?
Okola, thank you for that question. So you see, some of those examples I gave with broadcast is mostly enterprises, not individual. We want to get into the consumer market space, because that's when the individual person can go and buy that terminal. And just like you put any other terminal, you put it and just like you have a wireless router, you can use it. And that's why it's so important for us to live up to that mandate. That's why it's important that we do that. That's when real people feel our impact. If I'm delivering only to enterprises, they don't. But even in the defense sector is also important, because that's also feeling the impact. We want to support the Navy. When they sail those ships across the waters in Nigeria, off the coast in Nigeria, and they need to communicate, there is no mobile operator in the middle of the ocean. It is satellite. We want to support the Nigerian Railway Corporation. When they move trains between Warri and Itakpe, Abuja and Kaduna, people should be able to, if they want to browse on the train without using their mobile operator, or if there's no coverage and there are patches, they should be able to buy. We want to help the defense sector. When we send our men in service to very remote parts of Nigeria where there is no coverage, in the middle of Zambisa forest, when they move that armored vehicle, we need them to be able to communicate. Their cameras should be seen by their headquarters in command.
So we don't have that capacity yet.
We have it. That's what we're saying. That's when you're asking about the value. What will I do? What will I do? This is for me the outcome that will show that we are working when we do these things.
So let's talk about what dates from the data available to you in terms of broadband penetration in Nigeria right now. Factually, where are we?
Just about 50%. We're not where we should be. We want to get to 70. That means only half the nation.
Yeah, and you know, that part about Sambisa Forest is really important, because just months ago, a major general was killed, and it had to do with
very sad.
Communication,
very
interception, sad. And all of that.
That is why it's always important for men in the special forces, men in our military, to have what we call private communication channels. People should not be able to have any preview to their...
it was a very sad
story. It is very sad.
It's heartbreaking.
But what I would say is that...
What difference in our technology or the value that NIGCOMSAT will bring to carve out a unique technology network for security operations?
So what you give them is the ability to have a private communication channel. That's what you do as a satellite, because we carry the traffic without carrying any other person's traffic. We won't treat their traffic as a mobile operator, where you call, he calls, everybody calls the same channel. We don't do that to them. You dedicate their own channel, and you carry it without mixing it with commercial traffic. And we can do that, and that's what we want to do.
The reason I asked question around the broadband, so the president had promised in his renewed agenda by 2025 that they hope to reach 90% broadband penetration. So on that, they've not met expectation.
I don't think the number is 1995 though. But
2025. I have it.
I don't think it's 95%.
We will ensure that the national broadband plan to deliver broadband services to 19% of the population is achieved by 2025. This is fact. This is the 80-page documented promise. So that's what I'm saying. They failed in this aspect. Maybe there has been improvement from before. Where I'm going to with that question is, what can we do to scale aggressively, looking at the importance of broadband penetration?
So what we need to do to scale, like I said earlier, is that you need a layered solution. It's not one solution that can meet all your needs. And there's a lot of work, if you notice, happening. So while the mobile operators have done a lot, we must appreciate that, because before they came, it was actually even a whole different ball game. But we know that to an extent, they are also struggling to go very rural. Fiber is another option. You know, you could, if you probably have also kept your tab, you must have heard about the project that Dr. Boso Tisani,
yes,
the minister, has been talking about, Project Bridge, which is also to ensure that we get fiber all across the nation. Because most times the problem we have, not like there's no fiber. Subsea cable, like we say, lands on the coast of West Africa, and Nigeria has about 8 landing ports. Nobody in West Africa has that much. That's not the problem. The problem is somebody has to take it from Lagos all the way to the end of the north. That's where the challenge is, the distribution. But we also know that even as you do that with fiber comes with also, right of way. It takes time, the type of landscape we'll have. So in those very deep rural parts, satellite becomes a strength.
The reason I asked that question is it builds up to another question, because the argument that we had recently, election management, result management, that has to do with Section 60, subsection 3, about whether or not we have the capacity to transmit election results real time, which became a problem anyway. There's now a proviso. So is that something that bothers persons like NIGCOM? Is this from a technical point of view, because INEC had a meeting or a committee set up between them, NCC and I think MNOs, as mobile network operators, that guaranteed 93% polling units of our country out of 176,000 have some level of connectivity or the other, but the politicians kept arguing back and forth. So what do you have to say about that debate about technical capacity?
I think technical capacity is there. So INEC guarantee, the mobile operators guarantees 93%. You bridge the remaining 0.7% with satellite. That's what you do. Because you might not be able to roll out a mobile operators network in that short time, but you bridge it with satellite. So technically, we do have technology.
So should NIGCOMSAT have been part of that debate and hearings and consultation, because there was consultation across board, civil society, election observation experts, and all of that. So should NIGCOMSAT have been brought in, to bring its own expertise to bear to advise that indeed we have the capacity?
Okay, Bukola, if I might flip your question, I would say NIGCOMSAT should be part of the solution. Maybe bringing it to hearing, maybe not, but should be part of the solution. Because that's why the nation has invested so much in it.
So do you consider it a missed opportunity to
I think it should be an opportunity that we should really tap into, yes. It should. It's an opportunity we should tap into, because we have invested so much, and there are very few countries in Africa that have done this type of investment. There's actually none in West Africa that has. So we should use our asset. We should sweat it.
Because the politicians have had their way. I listened to a write-up by the Senate Majority Leader, a man I have a lot of respect for. But sadly, in that write-up, he did not mention that piece of document, position paper in 2021, that clearly stated the position of all of the aggregates that came together to say 93% polling units, 7 will be bridged by, I don't know the technical terms used now. So let's talk about how we can help Nigerians understand the relevance of what you do going forward, because there has to be some level of, is it important to make Nigerians understand what you're doing? Because sometimes when I was about to ask the question, I asked myself, is it everything that Nigerians should know? Because certain things are classified. So maybe you can help me on this, break it down.
So, like you said, certain things are classified, but certain things people should know. If a country has invested this much in satellite, people should know it exists. People should know what it can be used for, but maybe not everything is used for, you can tell, but people should know, because the majority of what is meant to be used for is to help the average Nigerian, is to improve and increase the value we provide to our citizens, so they should know.
So, because it's sad to see, under this administration, now I say this with the greatest sense of responsibility, Bola Tinubu, our president, did not start insecurity problem. But when you become president, you inherit liabilities.
You tend to take all the problems.
Assets. That's the unfortunate thing about this job. However, the highest number of one-time mass abduction in the history of since this crazy abduction started happened under this administration. The one in Papri, where over 300 people were abducted. I think Chibok was 200 and something. And I think it was the Honorable Minister, Bosu Tijani, that was asked about what's going on. People can be easily tracked and all of that, but these guys use phones to talk to their parents or their relatives, and people pay ransom. So why can't we track these guys and do what we should do to them, book a date between them and their maker, rather than these things that happen in our national security? The success rate of mass abduction is unacceptable, and we have technology like yours.
I know, like if I speak to that, is that even as you evolve, as technology evolves, the bad guys also try to outsmart technology. So the goal is to keep evolving as they evolve, because they're always smart. In the good old days, they probably would use technology that was easily tracked. And now they probably want to go advanced as well. So I think the question is, we have to step up as they step up. That's how I would frame it. I wouldn't say it's a case of, because there's been a lot of intentionality in this government, I must say. At least from my viewpoint, there's been a lot of intentionality, but it doesn't mean that the bad guys have gone to bed. So it is also important that as they continue, we also do the same.
But I wonder if that answer is sufficient. What is the missing link in terms of data harmonization and the provision of technology to be able to track these guys? We've had a conversation with a young man, a private individual who provides security from his own level, who talked about what being needed is tracking devices. relatedly, we have name-SIM linkage, we have all forms of data that has been harmonized with the SIM that, captures the registration of every individual who owns a SIM in Nigeria. But that doesn't make a difference where security is concerned. We have bandits go on live social media and interact with Nigerians. So what is missing to enable the relevant security agencies reining on these guys technologically?
So I think one thing, just listening to you, one thing is to have data, another thing is to use the data with insights. And as we also said, it's also a moving post, because as you're trying to have their data, they're also trying to change the data. We've had cases, people are registering SIMs not with their own details, with somebody else's details. And I'm sure that's because they're trying to detach themselves from the SIM. So you would have those kind of gaps in the system. But even at that, one, like you mentioned, is to harmonize the data. Bits and bits of data, put them all together. That will give you better, insightful information that you can use. But two is also to use that data. If you harmonize it, you have to use it. So I don't think I can sit on this table and say, oh, this is going to be the solution. I think it's a solution that requires a lot. It takes more agencies. It takes more inputs, because we have to, is a concerted effort to continue at something until you win at it. It's not something you say, oh, this is the solution, we harmonize the data, and the solution is there. No, you harmonize it, you keep checking the output until we achieve the goal, we keep working at it.
Where does NIGCOMSAT come in here?
So NIGCOMSAT, because NIGCOMSAT does have a communication satellite, can definitely help when it comes to communicating. Maybe not to track, because we don't track, that's to geolocate, but we can communicate. So if you have data, for example, and you need to take up an operation, and you're going to take up an operation where there is no traditional coverage, but it's important that as you take up that operation, you are chatting or you are in contact with leadership, because that's your backup or command and control. We definitely play a great role. Sometimes you're trying to use any kind of device in those type of areas that need to communicate. NIGCOMSAT will definitely be of great help, because we can allow any of those devices communicate with wherever you want for the operation you're having.
Fantastic. We wish we could just keep talking and discussing all of this with you, because there's a lot we can unpack as far as technology is concerned. But before we go, one question crossed my mind. I like to follow the money.
Okay.
And I know what money can do. What can 50 billion naira do for NIGCOMSAT if that is released as capex for you this year?
A lot. A lot.
No, the reason I'm asking that question with a motive. The motive is national security, election management, at least those specific, before I even talk about economics. 50 billion can do a lot, because 50 billion is definitely, that's about, let's say roughly slightly less than maybe $40 million. That can do quite a lot.
Help us outline.
I'm sure.
No, because
maybe one or two or three.
We're trying to tell the president. We're trying to tell the president.
That cannot launch a new satellite.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely cannot. But it can actually help with the equipments on ground. So there are two parts of what we do. There is the satellite in space. But to use the satellite in space, you have the ground equipment. And that can be really invested in the ground equipment. So the terminals, whatever use case you have, to put it on a train, on a ship, on a plane, in somebody's house, in anything that moves, those are the terminals I'm talking about. It definitely can help. It can help to include, maybe updated software, maybe add analytics to some of your communication. So there's a lot you can use it for. So it can definitely go a long way.
Thank you so much. Next time we have friends where politicians come, we will pitch your position to them that NIGCOMSAT is doing his work.
I would appreciate that. But I think beyond politicians, what I really love about what we are doing, and which is why it was important for me to show up, is also to allow the audience understand what we do. Because a lot of people don't understand what we do. And it's so important that if a nation is investing this much, people should understand so they can see where they can use it.
So before we let you go, I'd like you to talk about that space ambition for Nigerians who are saying, oh, we've got so many other problems, on ground for us to now start launching a space ambition. I'd like you to address that.
Someone said something which I will just share, that history does not forget those that are intentional. And you can do two things at the same time. You can fight poverty and you can still take up leadership in space, because it can become a tool to enable you fight poverty. So this leadership role that Nigeria is taking, by the president taking that stand to give approval to launch 4 new satellites for NASTA and 2 new satellites for NIGCOMSAT, is a great milestone. Even the global body appreciates that.
Okay, so this is what will happen. We're going to have another date with you, not dinner date, TV date.
Another TV date.
Another TV
Okay.
date. So this is what? This is March, maybe after the primaries. Let's say sometime in the middle of the month, maybe June or so. We'll bring you back. But at that time, we're going to have slides.
But Jeffrey, ahead of that time, Nigerians are having a lot of concerns about electronic transmission of results.
I'm going to come to you, Bukola.
Yeah.
So when we come that time, they're going to come with slides, so that this is our big screen. We're going
so we can.
Yes.
And I love to lecture. I'll be very happy to do that.
We can, if we're seeing pictures and videos,
then you can.
It's easier.
And we can show use cases.
So that's yes.
So we can see where people are using it.
Although we had exited that part of the conversation, but a lot of questions are coming in about electronic transmission of results. It's critical amid, the ongoing debate about the positioning of the opposition, how changing the game, amid, changing the goalpost amid the game and all of that. So the questions I'm seeing here: should the debate be reopened? Should more pressure be on the National Assembly, to initiate another, conversation on the amendment of Electoral Act 2026? So I'd like you to double down on whether this has been a missed opportunity, and of course, the capacity, the broadband capacity as far as electronic transmission of results is concerned.
So, Bukola, I would answer it from a technology point of view. And one of the things we've made clear is that the technology is available. Technology can be used to do it, and it's used in so many places. And if you look at the use case we're using it for, it's not every individual. You're not transmitting it from people's homes. You're transmitting it from collation centers, isn't it?
Polling units.
Polling units, which is even simplified. That means I'm not saying everybody wants to vote from their bedroom. So everybody in their bedroom must have coverage. So technology can definitely solve that. And we do have the technology to do that.
And we have the capacity beyond...
We do have the capacity.
More importantly, do we have beyond the 93% coverage that INEC's position paper, in conjunction with other agencies, spoke about in 2021? We're in 2026 now. So is that an update on that? So if I speak to that data which Jeffrey mentioned, that data is regarding the polling units. Because if you say 93, you could refer to the coverage of Nigeria, and I'll say we don't have 93% all over Nigeria, but that is for the polling units. But so that's a different Has our capacity increased beyond 93%?
Since 2021.
Since 2021.
Definitely, our capacity already, they've built since 2021 till now, they built more than 5,000 sites. We've done fiber expansions, so definitely capacity has increased. But what you want is the intentionality, like we are saying, to put it in those polling units.
Yeah, no, I don't want to put you into a political crisis, but
Thank you very much.
Your technologies, you
speak. She's very grateful for that.
Yeah,
I will speak to the technology always.
To technology, yeah. So we'll face the politicians when they come with the technology bit. MD CEO, Nigerian Communications Satellite Limited, NIGCOMSAT, Mrs. Jane Egerton-Idem. Absolute pleasure to have had you here.
Thank you
so much. Bring us up to speed. Appreciate it. Thank you.